Hey everyone, in this video today we're going to be talking about how to add animations to our objects in A-Frame. So how we're going to do that is we're going to start with some really simple example code here. And so in this A-Frame scene, we just have a box and we're just going to assume all the default values for it, all of the default rotation, default position, and the default size, etc. But the one thing we're just going to define for now is just the color. And I think this is yellow in the hex values. So yeah, and basically this is the line of code that we're gonna look at for an example with animations. So, all right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna try and look into the syntax for an animation attribute. So if you remember correctly, each element or A-frame object has an attribute that you can change. And just like the position, the rotation, even with the scaling or the height, etc. Now we have one called animation. So just like a normal attribute for an element, we have the attribute name, which is in this case is animation, and then equals. And in our quotation marks, we have our attribute value. So you're going to notice that our attribute value for animation is actually broken up into pieces. And you can call them, basically you can call them properties. And these are the properties of the object that you're going to change with the animation. So in this case, with our first property, and just like all of our other properties here, I have where the property name goes and then where the property value goes. So the property name goes on the left side of the colon. So in this case, we're actually changing the property. And then after the colon and before the semicolon, you have the property value. So in this case, we're telling the animation to change the position. And in the second property, we're telling it where to move it from. In this one, we're telling it where to move it to. And then in this fourth property, we're giving it the duration. We're defining the duration property and then the looping property. So will it keep going and going and going or not? And then you'll notice that the duration is a large number. The reason for this is because duration is actually done in milliseconds, not seconds. So if you want 10 seconds, you just have to multiply that by 1,000 and then you get 10,000. All right, and then here is another example with color coding to help simplify it, make it easier to read maybe. But basically in this animation, we're doing a rotation and we defined from and to. So you'll notice that the y-axis value changes in the to property. And essentially what this means is that around the y-axis, so the y-axis, you can think of it like an axle that goes up and down. And if our object is here and our axle is the y-axis, we're basically rotating around the y-axis like it's an axle. So this is telling the object to rotate a full 360 degrees with respect to that y-axis. And then we're telling it to do it for 5 seconds. And we're telling it to do it forever. So just keep doing that. And then you'll notice there's another property I added in here that's new called easing. And essentially what easing is it tells the computer or tells A-Frame if any acceleration is going to be added to the motion. So if you just want it to move at a constant speed, you just say linear. You can even add, I think you can even add something like the sine wave. So if you want it to accelerate based on the sine wave function, you can do that as well. And it's not, for every animation, you're not using the exact same properties. In fact, there is a link to the documentations at the end of this that will show you all the different properties that you can change for an animation of an object. All right, so here's our animation added to the box that we were talking about earlier. Same one, you're just rotating around the y-axis. And now the next concept that we're going to talk about briefly is multiple animations. So you can actually add multiple animations to your A-frame objects. And this is an example of that. So not only are we rotating it, but we are also changing the position. And yes, so here is that easing example with the sign. So according to the documentation, it was ease in out sign. And just a quick tip, with the animations, you can actually add 2 underscores after it and then whatever word, character you want to put after it. So if you want to say animation and then 2 underscores, rotate to remind you that this is the rotation animation, you can totally do that. It makes it really nice and good for just organizing your code. And then here's the documentation. So that's it for the slides portion of the video. What I'm going to do next is actually show you what the animation looks like. All right, so here's the code that we were looking at in the slides. So it's going to be that yellow box that we were telling to rotate around the y-axis, a full rotation, so 360 degrees, and we're going to tell it to loop, and we're going to make that rotation constant for 5 seconds. And what we're also going to do is we're going to change the position. And essentially, I'm keeping the y and the z value the same. The only thing I'm changing is the x value. So basically, it's going to move from the right side of the screen to the left side of the screen for 10 seconds. And it's going to keep going forever. And it's going to accelerate based on the sine wave function. All right, so a quick way to see this is we can go to here and we can open up our web browser and drag our HTML file into the browser. And there you go. So there's our box. It is rotating around the y-axis and it's moving from right to left. So it's moving from that x value of 2 to x value of -2. And there you go. So that's basically the animation in action. For the activity, we're basically going to build a mini solar system. So yeah, thanks for watching. Again, like always, if you have any questions or concerns, or just curious about anything with animations in A-Frame or A-Frame in general, just let me know. All right, thanks.